We identify with that which is not by its own nature I or mine as being I or mine. And so this first practice we did, you remember the simple shamatha practice of attending to the sensations arising throughout the body, and within that range of somatic sensations, appearances arising within the somatic field, selectively attending to those sensations correlated to the breath throughout the body, right? You know, that's a very powerful, deep practice. Because if you're attending to, and this is the point, we're already doing it, from the stillness of your awareness, observing the movements of the respiration throughout the body and not identifying with them. If you're simply dispassionately, quietly, and from the vantage point of stillness, and a direct, non-conceptual, simple witnessing, if you're simply witnessing something arising in the field of your experience, you're not identifying with it. You're witnessing it. Right? If you're not reifying it, it won't make you suffer. And if you don't identify with it, it won't make you suffer. So in this practice of mindfulness of breathing, starting with this dispassionate, but clear and observant, but not identifying with, without the cognitive fusion of your awareness with the sensations arising within this field. You're observing the movements of the breath throughout the body, the movements of respiration really, throughout the body. From the vantage point of the stillness of your awareness, it's like, really, it is like, very much like, if it's not flat out, is an out-of-body experience of your body. Because you're not observing the body from within the body, you're observing the body from the vantage point of the stillness of your own mental awareness, which is not located in the body. It's not in your head or your throat or your heart. It's not anywhere else. It's kind of out-of-body experience of your own body, but you're simply observing it as a space with field of events arising within it. And if you can sustain that without identifying with my breath, my body, my sensations, my feelings, then, in some cases, they found mindfulness of breathing is as effective to ameliorate pain as morphine. Some studies. I'm not suggesting it's always going to work. It doesn't. Sometimes you need morphine. But this can be very powerfully effective, and it's simple. It's really simple. So we started there, where in kind of the shallow end of the pool, but it's so simple, and it's really not that difficult, is it? Just to observe the sensations throughout the whole body, arising, passing, that ebb and flow, the fluctuations corresponding to the breath. And to use the metaphor that Dujum Lingpo or Padmasambhava uses, but with respect to doing this, bringing the same quality of awareness to the mind, the movements of thoughts, which means all the activities, the movements of the mind. He says, as if, or like a cowherder watching his herd from afar, not identifying with the herd, not controlling the herd, not thinking they're my herd, just observing cows as cows, yaks as yaks, moving across the plain, attentively, with interest, but from the vantage point of stillness and non-identification. So in so doing, you simply observe the body as a matrix of events arising in space with no owner. If you get really good at that, not reifying your body, not reifying the sensations of the body, not identifying with them, now that will be a game changer. It's very similar. Developing that quality of awareness with respect to something we generally so fiercely reify and identify with. Looking into the mirror, how do I look today? How many of you do that? Oh, that's me. Oh, I look awful today. Oh, I need to do something. I need to look better. I want to put on my best show. I want to appear good. And then we look into the mind. Whoa, a lot of work to do here. I don't want this mind. I better do something about that. This is my mind. I better put it into shape. So we reify it, we identify it, and then we try to improve it. This is like trying to have good dreams. They're certainly more pleasant than bad dreams, of course. But it's better than having good dreams. Recognizing the dream as a dream, then it doesn't matter whether they're bad or good. Because they won't harm you and they won't help you. And they don't need to because they have no power. Because you didn't give them any power. So if you recognize a dream as a dream, it's powerless. And it doesn't matter whether you're being chopped to death by an alligator or being, fed nectar by a dakini. It's a dream dakini and a dream alligator, tomatoes and tomatoes. It doesn't matter because you're lucid. And there's nothing the dream can do. When I went into a 6-month retreat just doing this practice years ago, and Gyatran Rinpoche was guiding me, he said, Alan, when you're resting in this mode of awareness, if 1,000 demons come to assault you, they cannot hurt you. And if 1,000 Buddhas come to bless you, well, they can't help you. Because you don't need their help. They're mere apparitions. What do you need their help for? Do not look outside yourself for the Buddha. Right. So, this was a nice training ground. That mindfulness of breathing, attending to the breath as the breath, sensations as sensations, and simply dispassionately, quietly, vigilantly observing movement from the perspective of stillness with respect to the body. And then we just shift the same practice, the same quality of awareness, and we just turn it inward to the mind. And whatever's taking place in the mind, don't reify, don't identify with it. Observe it from the vantage point of stillness. And that's the practice. That's the key. That's the door opener. Distinguishing between the stillness of your awareness and the movement of thoughts. Now, for people that have had no such training, and there are most people, including many philosophers of mind, psychologists, neuroscientists, this just isn't part of the training. So let's not expect them to have abilities they don't have, because by and large they're never exposed to it. Right? So no false expectations, no disappointment. But I've met highly professionally trained people, one philosopher in particular, very distinguished, very eminent. And he just told me flat out, it's not possible to observe thoughts. This is after I've been doing it for maybe 10, 20,000 hours. And he was serious. It was really quite vehement. You cannot observe thoughts, you can only think them. And I think he was telling me the truth from his perspective. Why would he lie? I don't think he was lying at all. I think he was telling me his truth. That he'd never had a thought that he hadn't thought. Not once. Apparently, I'm not standing in judgment of him, but when he says you can't do it, this means he wasn't able to do it, and if he can't, then how could anybody else? This is our ethnocentricity coming in again. But this is the natural thing for the untrained mind. An emotion comes up and you're emoting. A desire comes up and you're desiring. An intention comes up, you're intending, and a thought comes up and you're thinking it. And a memory comes up and you're remembering it. And a fantasy comes up and you're fantasizing it. It's cognitive fusion from start to finish, which means it's just saying, reality, I'm ready to suffer. Sock it to me. Because I'm going to identify with anything that comes up. Well then just be prepared. This will just never end. Identify with your body, identify with your mind. You are stuck. You're in the swamp of samsara, and there is no freedom for you ever. You can make it a nice swamp or a nasty swamp, but a swamp is a swamp. And sooner or later, we just have to get over it. Basta. And observe mental events as mental events, and physical events as physical events, not existing from their own side and not I or mine. And that's what the simple shamatha practice is about. To observe the movements of your mind from the vantage point outside the movements of the mind, resting in stillness. Stillness of your own mental awareness. So that's the critical point here. Oh, let's see where it goes. This is getting quite exciting.